In a world where the news gets twisted, John and Tom stand tall, never wished it. MAGA hats on, they take the stage. With laughter and facts, they break the cage. Unsanctioned voices feel less and bold, turning the tide, watch the truth unfold. Unsanctioned America, hear their call. With a duo on fire, they'll never fall. From the heart of the right, they bring the fight, lasting through the night, shining light. Oh, invading the nonsense of the woke parade. With every punchline, conservative trade, they tackle the issues with humor and wit. In Unsanctioned America, they won't quit. So tune in tight, let the laughter ignite, as John and Tom clash through the political night. Unsanctioned America, hear their call. With a duo on fire, they'll never fall. From the heart of the right, they bring the fight, lasting through the night, shining light. So tune in tight, let the laughter ignite, as John and Tom clash through the political night. Unsanctioned America, hear their call. With a duo on fire, they'll never fall. From the heart of the right, they bring the fight, lasting through the night, shining light. Oh, together they rise, wear their pride like a crown. In Unsanctioned America, never backing down. Unsanctioned America, hear their call. With a duo on fire, they'll never fall. From the heart of the right, they bring the fight, lasting through the night, shining light. Oh, shining light.
Christmas, it's a time to get down. I said, Christmas, your Santa's coming to town. I said, Christmas, yeah, Christmas cheers all around. There's no need to be unhappy.
Welcome to Unsanctioned.
The President and I want to wish each and every American a very Merry Christmas.
At this sacred time of year, Christians celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and rejoice in his love for every person. We give thanks for the millions of Americans who come together to care for others with compassion and bring the warmth and bliss of this holy season to our families, our friends, our neighbors, and to those in need.
As we gather with loved ones this holiday, Americans across this land are grateful for all the men and women in uniform who keeps us safe, our military, our police, and everyone in law enforcement.
We say a special prayer for those military service members stationed far from home, and we renew our hope for peace among nations and joy to the world. On behalf of the entire Trump family, we wish everyone a joyous and Merry Christmas and a very happy, happy New Year.
Beautiful, beautiful message from our future president and future First Lady, John, for Christmas. And Merry Christmas to you, John.
Merry Christmas, Tom, and Merry Christmas to all of you watching today, day after Christmas, 12/26. We have a great show for you, Unsanctioned America. That was a great message from President Trump. He's, you know, it's so refreshing to have a president who can actually deliver a Christmas message without soiling himself in the process. So that's very nice. We also saw, I mean, there's great songs. I mean, great holiday spirit going on. We have Tom McDonald, who put out a great song, a real banger of a Christmas song.
I feel it's his
funny.
best. It's his best.
Yeah, it's one of his best pieces for sure. it's just been a great all around time frame, and I think that this country is celebrating Christmas like we haven't in a long time. A Christmas where we can really celebrate the blessing of being able to disassociate yourself from the political talk as much as we have over the past 4 years, right? I mean, it feels like if you were not talking about politics, you weren't doing your civic duty before. And now it's like, okay, we can relax a little bit. You know, you can trust Trump is not staring out of a window, you know, in some kind of gaze while the staff is running the country. And that's a great feeling. So Merry Christmas to all of you. God bless you and all of your families, to everyone who's watching. We are truly appreciate. We've had a great year. We finally got, I think maybe not completely, but we finally got at least vindication that we were being shadow banned from Facebook. And that apparently got lifted. At least I got noticed that it would be lifted. So that's great. Christmas present.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the greatest thing about my Christmas this year, before we say our prayer and get down, is that I had all of my kids from 5 to 25, their boyfriends, their girlfriends. I had all of my nephews together. It was just a full house. Really great. 22 people
Wow.
in at the house, and 22 is my lucky number. It's my daughter's birthday, so that meant a lot. It was just this incredible blessing this Christmas.
That's amazing, John. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing better than seeing your 5-year-old and your 25-year-old, you know, have real love for each other. So I mean, that's just I love that. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, in fact, came and announced that she became engaged.
Wow.
So now my oldest daughter is engaged and will soon be married. And my daughter Isabella, I am as proud as can be. I met her fiance now for the first time, and she's living out in Seattle, so she came all the way from Seattle, and just a wonderful guy, and I can't wait to see what happens for them. Very excited for them. But just a ton of blessings this year for our country and for my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, okay, so let's do a quick prayer, especially one of Thanksgiving, now that just celebrated Christmas, the day after Christmas. Lord, we are so grateful. I am so grateful, and Tom and I are so grateful for all the blessings that you bestow upon our families and this country. This is really a great time to remember why we fought so hard. At the end of the day, Christmas is why we fought so hard. The opportunity to celebrate Christmas, to have our freedoms in this country, which come from you, and celebrate them all with a sense of peace, that we're being led responsibly and with dignity, and towards someplace positive, you know, that will allow our families, like my daughter's new family that she's creating, have a future that is positive and protected by you, and falls within your grace. And that's really what we're celebrating, is our families, because that's what our fight is about, the American family. And we hope that we make you proud, not just with this show, of course, but our country. We hope that our country makes you proud, and that we continue to live in a way that, and to make this country just great. Not great again in the sense that we're going to be just rich or strong, but one that allows the people to live in your grace. And I think that that's the most important thing that can happen now during this time of reflection, that we understand that it's not just about being successful. It's about living in your grace and being a community and a country that is good at the end of the day. In your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right, man, let's get to it. Let's see. What do we got first?
Let's start off with some news. All right, John. So President Trump came out right away, just right before Christmas. And he had this to say. He had to say that anyone caught trafficking minors will get the death penalty immediately. Here he is in his own words, John.
When I am back in the White House, I will immediately end the Biden border nightmare. that traffickers are using to exploit vulnerable women and children. We will fully secure the border. I will wage war on the cartels just as I destroyed the ISIS caliphate, 100% gone, 100% destroyed. They'll come back now because we have a weak administration. I will use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries and without delay. And I will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children across our border receives the death penalty immediately.
Oh, there you go, John. And I believe him. I believe him.
No, I bet you the sex traffickers believe him and the child traffickers believe him. I bet you that's their new resolution is to stay out of Trump's sight, because he is certainly going to make this happen. I imagine that there's got to be an example made, right? That this is what we're doing. We're going to do this. And if you traffic children in the United States and get caught, then you're going to pay the ultimate price, and it's well deserved. This is a scourge in our society. This is what I mean about becoming a country that's good. We cannot be a country that allows this kind of atrocity to occur within our borders. And I have a real struggle as a Catholic. I have a real struggle, with the death penalty, but I do. So like me, I don't necessarily support the death penalty, but I also don't argue. And I think that it's completely justified in a lot of cases. And in fact, that conversation, I struggle with it. Okay. But I'm also a soldier. I've been in Afghanistan, and, I have had lots of conversations with people, biblical conversations about justifications, and that I think it satisfies that. So even though internally I have a struggle, I'm a supporter. And I think that if there's any crime that befits the death penalty, this is it.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine many people are going to object.
No, not at all, John. And I haven't been in the war zone like you have, and you've seen death up close and personal. I haven't seen that. But I also know that at this point, what's going on in our country, we definitely need some harsh consequences for some of the things that are happening. This is one of them, and I'm fully on board with this. And I wonder, John, if President Trump made this statement because of something he heard earlier, which was Mayorkas going on the MSM, saying that he knows that children are being trafficked, but it's not part of his department to do anything about it. And I can't believe this. Here he is.
ICE was also unable to account for more than 32,000 unaccompanied kids who failed to appear in court from 2019 to 2023, according to the report we read. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, says these children are being exploited and trafficked. Is that true?
Well,
Do you know?
Margaret, we certainly have received reports of children being trafficked, even those as to whom we know where they are. That is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security. Mm-hmm. What we do is we turn children over within 72 hours, as the law requires, to the Department of Health and Human Services, and then HHS places those children. Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking. But there are children who are reunited with a parent here in the United States or a legal guardian, and they move. And sometimes the government loses track. Individuals do not comply with their reporting obligations or otherwise. I think it is inaccurate to say that all of them are trafficked or victimized. There are a number of reasons why we might lose track of an individual. That is not necessarily specific to this administration. That has been a long-standing challenge in the immigration system. One example of why that system is so broken, why the duration of time in proceedings is unacceptably long and has to be remedied. Remember, we're dealing with a system that was last reformed in 1990.
All the excuses in the world coming from Mayorkas there.
We're talking about, and then he tries to hide the fact that we're talking about kids being trafficked. Like they're trying to explain. Listen, if there's 300,000 kids that are missing, what percentage is acceptable of those children to be trafficked for him, right? For him to actually address the question. Is it 10%, 30,000? Is it 1%, 3,000 kids that are being trafficked basically through using the United States as the vehicle to traffic these children? The fact is that when somebody does a crime, commits a crime, and they do it via mail, they get charged with what? Wire fraud, right? Like if you commit a crime and you use the post office, there's an additional crime or a different facet to the crime. And why isn't when they're using immigration policy that they don't have the same thing? Instead of it being wire fraud or something like that, then why aren't they being additionally, why aren't they adding to the charge itself? If you use the government to traffic a child, then that should be an extra 10 years in prison. You know, if you're using the government to, if you're involving the government and you're illicit crimes, then you should be. I mean, I don't know. And Mayorkas, by the way, is probably the worst secretary in the history. You know, they're really fighting hard over it. The Secretary of Education, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary, all these secretaries that Biden has picked, they're worse than just DEI picks. I mean, it seems like they have no intention whatsoever of solving a problem or protecting the American people or even preventing a crime against humanity, which this trafficking problem is.
Yeah. And I'm wondering when Biden is going to pardon Mayorkas, because I think there's so many people calling for him to go to jail. So many people saying that Mayorkas needs to go to jail.
He should go to jail, and he's complicit in a lot. In my opinion, he's complicit in a lot of these child trafficking cases because he's allowed them to happen. He's created the environment for them to happen, and Joe Biden too. If this is the kind of stuff that you would see happen in a war between two nations, but one country perpetrating on another, right? Like if you saw this happen in like 1890s or the Crimean War or something like that happen, and they were trafficking their kids and stuff. We complain about this stuff. Like you see liberals that are still, like in Canada, for example, and in the United States, liberals cry over what happened with Eskimos and with Native Americans, them taking their kids and putting them in government schools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is worse. The government here is taking these kids, separating them, and putting them into sex trades. I mean, and the liberals are nowhere to be found. They're supporting it because they think that, hey, as long as you can be a worker bee for the United States government and create an additional point, an additional hash mark on the census for Democrats, then it's okay to sex traffic you. And I think that, I mean, the first person that should be held accountable in this death penalty child trafficking thing, you know, I think if I were Mayorkas, I would be worried about that. He's the chief trafficker.
And I hope he is worried about it, because absolutely he should be the first one right there. But, you know, like I just said, John, Biden is commuting sentences left and right. He just signed 50 bills in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve. He went ahead and commuted the sentences of 37 out of 40 federal inmates set to be executed. Unbelievable. And even some Democrats don't agree with this.
Sandra?
Hi, John. Good to be with you. You know, another person on that list was convicted for killing 12 people in Philadelphia. That included 4 children. Now, President Biden says that he condemns these murderers and grieves for the victims' families, but added this in his statement, quote, "In good conscience, I cannot stand back and let a new administration resume executions that I halted." Now, Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, she responded in part saying, instead of death row, these monsters will rot in jail for life at taxpayer expense. More coal for crime victims on his way out. Now, exempt from these downgraded sentences were those who committed acts of terrorism or mass murders fueled by hate. That is Boston Marathon bomber Zohar Tsarnaev, Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof, and Pittsburgh synagogue shooter Robert Bauer. So those are exempt from the list. But the names included in the president's first round of mass clemency, remember that 1,500 more than so, prompted several Democrats even to sound off.
I have no doubt there were some righteous pardons in this group. OK, let's say that. I believe that there were. But there were a number that I think make no sense at all.
So there was bipartisan pushback on that. For example, Kids for Cash scandal judge Michael Conahan, who's convicted of receiving kickbacks for sending children to for-profit detention centers. One mother whose son died by suicide after being locked up for months for being at an underage drinking party told Fox that she was shocked and hurt that the judge's sentence was commuted.
Joe Biden came here and campaigned multiple times that he was, Joe Scranton, he was one of us. He knew of our struggles and he cared about our community and our kids and our families. And that is just absolutely not true. He is not one of us.
And this just in from the Trump team responding to the death penalty pardons, telling Fox News, we're summarizing here, that this was an abhorrent decision by President Biden. They continue on that the rule of law will soon return here to the White House.
Yeah, and it will return once
crazy.
President Trump is back. But this is unbelievable, John. Unbelievable.
Well, here's the funny thing. He says that, he acts like this is a merciful thing. He's commuting the sentence of a guy who sent kids to prison for kickbacks. Yep. I mean, how Nazi-like is that, right? Like, again, the Democrats love to call Republicans Nazis. This guy is a modern version of a Nazi, in my opinion. Basically, Nazis would put people in jail. They would capture populations of people to force them into slave labor. That's what this guy did for his own profit. He would take kids, put them in jail because the organization that ran the jail, privatized organization that ran the jail, would give him kickbacks. That's literally who Joe Biden's commuting the sentence. I don't understand. What difference would it make how long that guy spends in jail? Yeah. All right. I mean, and so of course these families are heartbroken. It's grotesque. And I mean, we have example after example. So it's not just like, it's just not taking a murderer off of death row. No, it's beyond that. He did more than that. And the people that he commuted their sentences is just their horrific crimes. It's just, I mean, and the headline, what did we write? Right? Like, he has mercy for everybody, mercy for no one except for murderers and pedophiles. Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah. And we have one example of that, John. The Majors family, they went on TV to slam Joe Biden for granting clemency to her killer right before Christmas without speaking to them. Unbelievable. Here they are.
In the afternoon, I was actually gathered with my in-laws for our family Christmas. My sister was gathered with her in-laws, and we got the call, and I was angry. I'm still angry. I am upset that this is even happening, that one man can make this decision without even talking to the victims, without any regard for what we've been through, what we're going through. I'm completely hurt, frustrated, and angry.
So, Heather, nobody gave you a heads up that this was coming from the White House?
So in May, we heard that this was a possibility. And at that point, we began writing letters to the pardon attorney. I reached out requesting an in-person meeting in D.C., and we were refused. They denied our right to have our voices heard, that we're victims. My mother was murdered at the hands of Brandon Hansel. They should have heard our story, and all we got was a 10-minute virtual conference, and clearly that fell on deaf ears. They did not want to hear our story.
Danny, Joe Biden, or whoever made this decision, because it is entirely unclear whether this came from him directly or his people, he's showing mercy to your wife's killer. Was your wife shown any mercy?
She was shown no mercy at all. This man walked into the bank, never said 2 words to her, shot her 3 times in total, went and shot her coworker, Katie Skeen, as well, who was totally defenseless and unaware that anything was happening. It's just beyond me that I can't even believe that this has actually happened, a commuting of sentences like this of 37 victims, all but 3, which was certainly a political scheme, undoubtedly. Joe Biden was also told by the Pope that he should stop these executions. Now, what the Pope has to do with anything in this country, I don't know. But Joe Biden certainly has no convictions. He's a senile old man. He couldn't tie his shoes, I wouldn't think, if you could see him in person. It's absolutely just.
Yep, and you know, I agree with this guy, John, and it makes you wonder who really signed off on these sentences and commuting these sentences. Who signed off on this? Because we know Joe Biden, like the man said, could barely tie his shoes. Probably he's a senile old man. Who made this call? You know.
I mean, you can't tell his whole staff, like the entire group of people that he has that are actually running the country right now are all radicals in one way or another. They're fanatics of the left, and you know, you can't tell whether this is a policy driven idea, whether, you know, listen, I'm, you know, somebody is like super anti-justice, right? Yeah. Or somebody is just like anti-Christian. At the end of the day, both of those give you the same answer. And because he's got nothing but fanatics propping him up in the White House, you just, I mean, there's 100 different reasons why. I'm surprised that they didn't release them and pardon them. Even the people that Joe
Right.
Biden has pardoned have been grossly, you know, it's a really disgusting act. I don't know why that it's not more in the mainstream media talking about the exact people that he's pardoned. And it's because everybody's waiting. They don't want to use up the headline, right? Because the headline is Joe Biden pardons X, right? And they don't want to use it too early on the people that he's pardoned now. So up to this point, instead they're saving it for when he pardons Hillary Clinton and Mayorkas and so on. Yeah. And so that's the only reason it hasn't been in the news, because they don't want the repetitive story. They're saving the ammunition for that one big story when he gives everyone everyone in the White House a pardon, essentially. But otherwise, that would be big news too. The pardons have been disgusting. Everything that he's doing on his way out is really gross. And I don't just mean like gross in the silly way. I mean, it's literally, it's disgusting that anybody would betray his own people like this, right? It's like betraying your own family, betraying your country. There's a real element of disgust to it. And I mean, we see it with the Republican Party. Like, it's basically the establishment. Yeah. We're all, and that's really what's going on. The establishment itself, right, always protects itself. And now it's exposing itself as not being aligned with anything that's important to anyone. It's only taking care of itself. And so the fanatics in Biden's administration are only taking care of now their most basic needs. They're not trying to hide it. They're not painting it. They're not trying to, you know, wrap it up in nice paper. It's just, it is what it is. Now you're seeing the true, the facade wiped away, you know, version of what his radicals believe. And his radicals hate this country. And that's that's become more and more obvious as time has progressed. Now we're seeing that they're letting murderers. That's why another reason why they would be okay bringing in murderers and psychotics from Venezuela to this country, right? Yeah. Because they're not just bringing them from Venezuela. They're not just importing them. Now they're manufacturing them here, homegrown. I mean, and it's really just, it's disturbing.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, he's signing off on this, which is incredible. But John, even more incredible, but not surprising, is the fact that Biden just went ahead and gave big pharma immunity for the COVID vaccine,
exactly,
all the way
right?
through the end of Trump's presidency in 2029. You know,
I mean, this is not This is not a. It's not a coincidence. So, you know, on the top of his list is murderers, pedophiles, and the pharmaceutical companies. Oh. That's who he extends mercy and grace towards. It's not confusing, really, but it is outrageous. And I mean, what does it tell you? The pharmaceutical industry is as responsible for killing people, as many people as, you know, any of the serial killers that we have that he's given a pardon or commuted their sentence for. And so, I mean, it just makes sense at all. When you look at it from 30,000 feet, this looks like Joe Biden.
Yeah,
right. And not Joe Biden. It just looks like Joe Biden's pen, because we know that, as they said before, the guy is senile. We don't know what capacity he has left to do this himself. And everybody's got to wonder who's running the country.
Absolutely. Here's that story.
Another Move to hamstring the MAGA agenda, Joe Biden's Department of Health and Human Services just extended the liability shield for COVID vaccine makers through the end of, we'll let you guess, 2029, the year that Trump will leave office. What are they shielding manufacturers from if these vaccines are so safe?
Plus, HHS's vaccine injury compensation program still doesn't cover injuries from the COVID vaccine. However, a different, little-known government program can, but it's being slow-walked. Of the more than 13,000 claims sent into the program alleging injury or death from the COVID vaccine or another COVID treatment, fewer than 3,500 have decisions.
And of those decisions, 18 claims have been compensated. 3,373 have been denied. Joining us now, a member of the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic and a former emergency room doctor, Congressman from Georgia, Rich McCormick. A doctor and Congressman, great to see you. So if these COVID vaccines will continue for until 2029, will continue to fall under this program, which you do not get reimbursement if you're one of the few that HHS decides in favor of, you get no pain and suffering. What's Biden and co. up to with this decision?
Well, it's not just that. If you look at the way they designed this, you have no repercussions. You can't sue these companies who have come up with these vaccinations that may or may not be harmful. But this is why we make decisions with our doctors and suffer the consequences. But we've held cigarette companies accountable. You just did a report on holding oil companies responsible for global warming, that they could be sued for that. And then you're going to say you can't hold people who actually have real manifestations of physical harm from vaccination for young, healthy people a lot of times that should have no business of getting a vaccination when they have immunity already, and you're not going to hold them accountable. This is ridiculous double standards, and it shows you who they're favoring and who they're playing politics with. And quite frankly, we just did a hearing in which 40% of this year's FEMA budget was diverted to, guess what? COVID paybacks. Still this year, the pandemic's been over for a couple of years. And I'm an ER doc. I served my last shift about December 28th, 2 years ago. And you know that this pandemic's over, but yet we're still spending 40% of FEMA during a year where we had shortfalls in the budget for hurricanes on something that's been over for a couple of years. Shame on us. We need to hold these people accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just ridiculous. Why would they be shielding Big Pharma from these liability claims if there wasn't something wrong with this, you know?
I mean, I think, number one, we need to know exactly how much money the pharmaceutical industry made from COVID. That's the number one thing. I think that we need to find that answer first.
I wonder if they can even count how much money they made off of the COVID vaccine. I mean,
I guarantee you right now they have swimming pools full of cash. You know, I mean, they could be swimming in gold bars. It's ridiculous the amount of money that the government probably paid for all of these vaccines and stuff. We need to find that out because that tells you the amount of leverage that they have. It tells you the amount of motive that they have. It tells you, you know, then you can look at what the investment was in making the vaccine. Look at the percentage of margin that they had, because those things are really important for why a company would be given this and why it would be so powerful that it could make a president offer them immunity.
Yeah,
it's you know, I mean, that's what we need to find out. I mean, how much money is at stake? If you were to say, okay, listen, they made $1 billion off of the COVID vaccine, is that going to shock anybody? Is that going to make like that? Is that going to really be like mind blowing? No, I mean $1 billion. Okay, no. Now, if they made $50 billion,
100 billion.
Is that going to, yeah, 100 billion, right? If they made 500 billion, now you're talking about such a ginormous amount of money that it's crazy, right? Now you're talking like absolutely. Could you buy Joe Biden with a couple $1 million? Probably. That's how cheap he is, right? Now imagine with tens of billions of dollars at stake, how much money they could give him on the back end. I mean, look, it's like the guy practically started a war over, to hide his legacy in Ukraine.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I want to know how much money's at stake. So I know how much I could imagine, I could fathom the pharmaceutical industry fighting for their lives to keep that profit margin, to not have to return it or not to go to jail. And I would like to see some of these executives go to jail. That's what we need to see is a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, we need to see their executives go to jail when they're harming people left and right. We cannot allow the second, possibly, I'm not a healthcare expert, but the second most important aspect of our healthcare system in the United States, not by my opinion or anything, but just by expense, be used to kill Americans and have no recourse. Americans have no recourse for it. So
no recourse, no consequences, just
they're just at will. It's just not only are we killing Americans with healthcare, but we're going to profit off of it also. The only thing worse than the pharmaceutical company is abortions, the abortion industry, where they're killing babies and selling their parts.
It's gotten to a point, John, where we can't trust going to the doctor anymore. We can't trust the healthcare industry, and it's really sad, John. It's really sad, really scary when you go there. You have to second guess. You start Googling things so you can double check, but absolutely always get a second opinion when you go to the doctor anymore.
How many opinions are going to make you feel safe? Because here's the thing, these doctors are taught by the pharmaceutical industries their whole lives, right? This is how you're going to make money. You make money doing this, you make money doing that. COVID, they told you how to prescribe it. And essentially the process that the industry, the healthcare industry, told you to execute when it came to COVID was killing people. It's and then anybody who was being honest, anybody who said, was using their common sense and saying, we shouldn't do this, was ostracized and lost their license and attacked and ridiculed. Absolutely, they lost the trust. But here's the thing: there's no consequence.
No.
And I'm not a big fan of the way that the insurance industry works in cohesion with the or in connection with the healthcare industry, because a doctor's like, okay, well, I'm not going to lose my license. What I'm going to do is it's going to be it's going to be a malpractice claim, and then the insurance company pays for it. And so it's so complicated, but it's like we're going to do damage control.
Yeah.
Which me professionally, I do that, right? I'm a mitigation expert. I mitigate risks, for companies. So same thing, right? Like I negotiate you out of trouble, but I can't say that this is doing good. When it comes to healthcare, you shouldn't be allowed to mitigate the risk. The risk is what keeps you on the right side of pragmatic thinking, right? It keeps you on the right side of people's healthcare decision making. And when you can mitigate your risk of profit, it's not mitigate the risk of outcome, it's mitigate your profit loss. That's, it's not good. It's not good. Our system is not good.
No, not at all.
It used to be, and I know a lot of good doctors, but how are they supposed to get rich? How are they supposed to have a doctor's income if they don't play the game?
No.
And who the hell wants to go to school for almost 20 years and then not be able to pay for their medical education?
Crazy. Well, John, one Democrat, and we've seen a bunch of Democrats, but one Democrat, this is a big money donor for the Democrat Party. Her name is Lindy Lee. She's appearing everywhere on TV right now, and she appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored saying it's like leaving a cult trying to leave the Democrat Party. Here she is.
Democrats have got to move on quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She's indulging delusions of running for governor in California in 2026 and perhaps even running for president in 2028. And I just want to echo what a lot of you guys already said. This past week has been harrowing for me. This Saturday, I went on Fox and Friends and I said that Democrats have a stench of loser hanging over them.
Yeah.
As soon as I said that, there were boycott campaigns against me, unblock, unfollow campaigns. I lost 40,000 followers.
Really?
In 4 days. People have called me the W word. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but you can fill in the blank.
We're uncensored. Let's say it. Say it. Say what the word was.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Well, they called me a whore. They called me the C word. They asked for me to
Disgusting.
be deported, and you can just search for my name in those terms on X, and you'll see a bunch of them. So all these so-called Democrats, the party of inclusion, the party of diversity, masks off. And it's even worse because they pretend to occupy the moral high ground. They pretend to be, so loving and caring and embracing of diversity. But all of a sudden, when I dare to utter any criticisms of the goddess, Kamala Harris, I get ostracized. Me, after having raised tens of millions of dollars for the party. My donors are pissed. They raised $2.5 billion across Super PAC and the campaign. It's my responsibility. It's my duty of care to ask what the hell happened with that money? Why did we spend it? Why did we spend millions of dollars on five-star hotels for campaign staffers? Why did we spend $500,000 essentially bribing Al Sharpton moments before he interviewed Kamala? These are legitimate questions, but no, in the cult, you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
And leaving the Democratic Party or even questioning the Democratic Party is like leaving a cult. It's terrifying. Pierce, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of this tent. I don't want to be a part of this craziness anymore. They're accelerating my rightward shift. I don't want this nonsense. It's just crazy. And honestly, they're shrinking their tent. They're basically telling me to they're pushing me to bring my tens of millions of dollars that I've raised and can continue to raise to a different team that treats me better, that treats me with just common decency, that doesn't call me a communist spy. By the way, the communist regime in China killed my great-grandfather. They don't know my family's history. This is the first time I'm really saying it on air. They are calling me a spy for the regime that killed my great-grandfather. Let that soak in just for a second. That's how disgraceful they are.
Yeah.
And these are the people who call themselves the social justice warriors. They are dabbling, they are going headfirst into racism anytime someone dares to disagree with them. I don't want to be a part of this nonsense anymore. I want to be a part of the team that says men are men and women are women, and then men shouldn't play in women's sports. And I'm an athlete myself. I'm a marathon.
Well, this is crazy.
There she goes.
I mean, at what point did you realize this?
Yeah.
Right? The only time that you realize it is the minute that what?
Or she's under attack. She gets under attack, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I don't want nothing to do with this anymore. But this has been going on for a while now, Lindy Lee. I mean, come on.
The party itself, that's become their identity. So, what point? When was it too far? When was the line? So you didn't say anything when they were trying to serve kids pornography in schools, right? Yeah. You didn't say anything when they're having parades and having their junk flop around in front of kids, right? Okay, that wasn't enough then. Then you start having now it's because there's a guy in your marathon running against you now, or what? It's only you, or they're calling you a whore personally. I mean, they've been calling women whores, period, forever. That's like their whole basis. That's the basis. That's the identity. They have no respect for women. If they had respect for women, they would never let women be abused in their locker rooms. You think that them calling you a whore is worse than a man being forced to dress next to you? A fully intact man, like staring you down while you're in the shower, but it's okay because he's got lipstick on? I mean, that's far worse than me. I don't care what name you call me. You can call me whatever you want. I don't care. But the minute that you invade my personal space, all of a sudden I have a vested interest of a much higher sort, much higher type, right? I mean, it's wake up. And they are. To their credit, she woke up, right? Now she's switching sides. She's saying like all these normal things. Men shouldn't play women's sports. All right, okay. They're gonna start saying normal things now. I mean, in 10 minutes, she's going to start talking about the economy too, right? She's going to be like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't be shipping all of our jobs overseas. Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't be giving the Taliban $8 billion worth of equipment. Maybe we should, it goes from one thing to the other. If them calling their followers a whore one day opens their eyes so that they can see all the other stupid things that they're doing, they can realize it is a cult. That's exactly what the left is. It's a cult. And the people in charge of it are nothing but freaks. it's funny. I'm glad. Who else was in that video in the top right? Did you notice, Tom?
Yeah, Jenk, yeah.
Yeah. So he's another guy that woke up.
Yeah.
So this is a fervent leftist, and now all of a sudden, he's like, oh, I don't want to be a part of this. The guy got a standing ovation at AmFest from Turning Point USA. And when he's talking about, okay, well, what am I going to fight over? I'm going to fight over the constitutional rights. I'm not going to win he said this, right? He's an anti-gun guy. He's like, I'm not going to get anywhere promoting anti-guns, but I can get somewhere with the right talking about our constitutional rights. And that's something that apparently he said that he believed in. I didn't watch his speech, but I heard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how long is it going to take? This is why. And now you want us to believe these are the people that they had at the top, right? These are leaders. These are their generals and colonels of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are leaving in droves. And you want us to believe that Trump only won by a few million votes?
Yeah.
All right. These are their generals. She raised tens of millions of dollars for the Democrat Party. And you want us to believe that Donald Trump did not win in 2020 and he only won by, a slim margin here in 2024? No, the Democrats did not have the will to steal this election because it was too big to rig.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been amazing to watch the change in the Young Turks and Cenk. And it's just been amazing to watch them change and come to this realization that the modern day left is a cult. It is all about being a cult. It's all about being in line with their beliefs and their thinking. And even if you have a slight difference, you're out. You're done.
You're out.
We don't want nothing to do with you. And
gaslighting, is their number one tool.
Yeah.
So there's only so long that somebody can gaslight somebody else before it becomes like laughable, right? I mean, if you don't believe it, you either believe it and then you become desensitized to it and then you become part of the cult, or you have to laugh. Like, really? You want me to believe that that's a woman? The guy over there with a mustache and lipstick in a dress is a woman? You want me to believe that, like, full-heartedly? I can't. I gotta laugh. I mean, I can't. The fact that you want me to believe it is funny.
Hopefully what we're seeing here is a return to common sense. And I think that's very important because it's so lacking today in society. It's so lacking. Hopefully we'll see it. And hopefully things like this, John, will wake people up. Rand Paul yearly breaks down the Festivus report, which is the report of government wasteful spending. And it's at $1 trillion this year, John. $1 trillion in government waste. Here he is. He was on Fox and Friends to talk about this.
You've got a lot of problems with government people, to quote Seinfeld further. How tough is it to target and find the entries on this list?
I got a lot of problems with big spenders in both parties. And here's the thing. Everywhere you look, you find more of this stuff. $1 trillion. That means we found a lot of waste. But it's everywhere. It's in all the big departments, in the Department of State. It's in NIH. It's in the National Science Foundation. And people wonder, why does it exist every year? We have this Department of Doge. Are they going to be able to get rid of it? Well, the only way to get rid of it is to spend less money. So if you give the National Science Foundation $4 billion one year, and then you increase it to $8 billion, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that you're going to get more waste, not less. This has been going on since the 70s, but it has exploded. But you have to be willing to cut spending for the overall department. NIH will have more waste if you give them more money. They spent $3 million studying what kids do when they look at ads for food on Facebook. So they had a whole bunch of kids look at ads for food on Facebook, and that was $3 million worth. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars to drill holes into cats' head, spin them around rapidly, and study motion sickness. Sounds more like animal cruelty than it actually sounds like an experiment. But the list goes on and on.
And that's not to mention, you have stolen COVID relief funds, $8 million. One guy from Florida did it to buy an island. You mentioned the cat. The list does go on and on. But you also alluded to this, Senator. Do you think your tradition ends this year? In other words, is this the year that Doge eliminates the need for you to go through and make this list, because they've done it over the course of the intervening 365 days?
ultimately it takes Congress. Congress has to get rid of the spending. Doge can point out the spending problems and the waste the same way I've been pointing it out. But the reason it's not eliminated is they don't have the votes to get rid of the spending. So I am very hopeful that Doge will draw attention to this the same way I've been drawing attention to it. But I'll give you an example. About a year ago, there was a chip spill, a bill to subsidize microchips, semiconductors in the United States. Well, in that bill, they doubled the size of the National Science Foundation. Now, the National Science Foundation is the one that's famous for doing a study on whether tequila or gin makes people more aggressive. So they fed fish, half of them tequila, and the other half of the fish gin, and they decided which made the fish more aggressive. That's the National Science Foundation. Most of the terrible, wasteful projects, the crazy stuff and experiments that's going on is National Science Foundation. In the CHIPS bill, all the Democrats and half the Republicans voted to double the size of the National Science Foundation. So why is there more waste? Because the idiots in Congress keep giving them more money.
Well, it will be interesting to see again what happens when Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Very different from what we've experienced the last 96 hours in Congress. Will this waste go away? Will you be needed on Christmas Eve next year? We will see. Senator Rand.
Yeah, we will see. And Rand Paul has a point, John. He says that, it's up to Congress to cut this. Doge can make the suggestions. They can point out the wasteful spending. But it's up to the Congress to cut it out, to stop spending the money. I will point out that Elon Musk did go before Congress at their meeting and warn them that if they went against President Trump's agenda, he would primary them. He would fund a primary challenger to them. So I think these Congress people have a lot to think about going into this next session and this next year and the next 4 years. They have a lot to think about. Are you going to cut this spending? Are you going to take Doge's suggestions? Or are you going to try and continue to do what you do and be primaried in the future?
Listen, these guys are brazen, right? They're congressmen. They're not like when I ran in the Senate and I went to that debate, right? And it was me against 3 Democrats or 2 Democrats that actually showed up. One didn't show up. And it was a room full of Democrats. It was about 80 Democrats in the room and the audience and me against 2 Democrats there. And we were debating. And no matter what I said, it was like the wrong answer in that room, right? Yeah. It was like, right. So I'm not going to make these Democrats happy with what my views are. But in between the 2 Democrats, one was a former congressman and the other one was not. And the congressman was a pro, and you could tell.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all that you get to Congress, and after a couple of years, you become a pro at BS, and so they feel a lot. They're like a school of fish. So they swim together, they protect each other, and they're all pros. So, at this level, these are the, political major leagues. You are not only are you a pro yourself, good at your job, but you're also in a school of fish. And they know they have to stay together because Elon Musk is a pro and he's a big fish. But they're okay because they're in a school, so they can lose 1 or 2, but they all survive. The majority of them survive.
Yeah.
In order to change the dynamic, Elon Musk is going to have to primary them all. He's going to have to he spent what, $250 million on Trump's campaign?
Yeah.
He's going to have to spend another $250 million in 2 years to smoke these rhino politicians. And that's only the ones that he's got a primary on the Republican side, $250 million. And you have to remember all these corporations, they can spend $250 million isn't that much money to all these corporations that receive it. Like the defense contractors, they can do $250 million by themselves. And then you have like the pharmaceutical companies, they'll do $250 million, no problem. So in addition to Elon Musk, who else are you going to add? Who else has to be part of that? It has to be the grassroots. The grassroots are the ones that really matter because they vote. And if you can convince John Arguello to vote, and then you never have to come back to John Arguello again, that's money that you save because I'm going to vote the way that you need me to, right? So they need to really spend this money getting these people involved. And So the candidates that they pick to primary these people is what's going to scare the politicians. If you give John Arguello $250 million to run against Darren Soto wouldn't sleep for the next 2 years, right? Because he knows not only two ways. Number one, I'm a ferocious campaigner. Number two, if I were to become elected to that position, I would be hammering away, I would be hammering away. I would be a huge problem for them. That's what you got to look for. You got to look for a whole bunch of people that are willing to sacrifice their careers, even if their stint in Congress is only 2 years. They use those 2 years fervently to fight for the mission. And if they do that, then I think that these guys will come online. If you don't do that and they think, oh, well, all I got to do is survive a couple of elections. Well, Fred over here might lose his election, but I'll win mine. So, let's duke it out, because we can't allow these guys to win. The establishment has to win. And that's what it is. The establishment's a school of fish, piranhas. They're all together, and they're going to fight Elon Musk. So I don't know if Elon Musk's threat is as big as we want it to be. We all hope, right? You and I, for one, we hope that his threat is real. Yeah. We hope that he does primary these people. And we hope that he spends all the money in the world primarying these people, because we want to see them lose. But does it matter if they change course? We still want them to lose at the end of the day. So they don't have a choice but to continue.
Yeah. So I'm praying that Elon Musk's warning is factual, that it's real, that it's going to happen, because we need it to, John. We need it to, if we're going to see this real change that we desperately need in this country.
Yeah, you're right. 100%.
Hoping for it. All right, John. So it's time to take things across the nation. Let's look at some other stories. All right. So first up, and this is a horrible story to talk about, especially around Christmas. But what else are we gonna do, right? I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
This Guatemalan immigrant who is accused. He actually did it. I mean, but he's accused. But there's no cameras seeing him do it. But he basically fessed up to it. He accused of setting a woman on fire in New York City subway. He was actually deported under Trump, but later snuck back in. This is what we're talking about. This is why we need Tom Homan. This is a image of the guy. We're not going to show the video. If you want to go on X, you can find this video on X. It's everywhere, of this woman burning to death. And nobody, not one single person helping her. Cops walk by, they don't help her. There's people standing there with their phones out filming it. This is like the meme that's out there that we see everywhere. Something bad happens, everybody flips out their phone and starts, filming instead of helping. That's exactly what happened here. And then the guy who actually set her on fire comes back, and he starts to fan the flames. He takes a jacket and starts to fan the flames on the woman as she's burning to death. Cops are walking by. Nobody does anything. People there filming the guy fanning the flames on this woman as she's burning to death, John. It is the most... I think it is one of the things that I've seen recently that makes me angry. Like, very angry. And you wonder why we have Daniel Penny and why he did what he did. This is a prime example. And you can go on X and see other videos of things that happen in the New York subway system. Just incredible. I saw a video of some guys with a fire extinguisher shooting it out at people inside the subway car. I saw another video with another guy harassing a young couple, trying to take their drink from her. It's just incredible. I don't know why anybody would ride on the New York subway system at this point. And you have the governor, Kathy Hochul, coming out. She did a video right after this happened, sitting in a subway car, obviously with protection all around her, saying the subway is safe, the subway is safe. And then you have all these other videos to the contrary. It's just unbelievable, John. I'm hoping that some real change comes to New York, and I hope New Yorkers are fed up with this. They get rid of Kathy Hochul. Eric Adams, I think he sees the light. He's woken up. He's starting to change course and move to the right, so he could probably save his job. But I don't know. What do you think, John?
I'm shocked by this story. It's so depressing. You know, like you said, you got mad, right? I've been mad over some of the lesser stuff than this, but this one is so disturbing. It rocks you to your core. For a human being to light another human being on fire, and for it to be video camera, nobody do anything. You're just sitting there with your phone videotaping it. Nobody steps in to help this woman. I mean, I just don't understand. Even a cop walks past her and doesn't do anything. They just walk past. I mean, it looks like a movie set. I don't understand that there's nobody taking action. You just don't get. You don't get it. It's like watching somebody suffer. It's like, literally, are we in Afghanistan watching somebody be stoned to death and nobody's doing it? Just a big crowd. It looks like a public execution as much as anything else. Yeah. It's terrifying. And here's the worst part of this is that this guy had been deported. This woman would still be alive. By the way, this was a nurse, from what I had read. This is a nurse from Orlando who was killed. But this guy had been deported. This Guatemalan had been deported by Trump, and then Biden let him back in. So this is a death that was completely avoidable. Of course, New York is just a cesspool. The people in New York, I don't know how they survive being in New York. There's no proximity to a play or anything like that makes living in New York worth it. It's just a cesspool. I mean, it's just like Los Angeles, all these places, they're cesspools. And I don't mean the people. I mean their leaders, their government. It's just disgusting that they would allow this, encourage this, and not do anything about it. And then the question that you said, you were like, how could anybody do this? My question is, how could you prosecute Penny?
Yeah.
How can you prosecute Penny when they're doing things like this on the subway and Penny steps up and saves somebody's life? I'll never understand. It's just so sad. It's so sad. And I mean, this is not the America. This is not America.
No.
This is the leftist America, bizarro world version.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I was about to say it's truly bizarro world, John. You know, I mean, everything's backwards.
They need to prosecute the people who allow this to happen. So just like we want the pharmaceutical companies to be held accountable, right? We also want these politicians to start being held accountable, and they're not. And primarying them is not strong enough. They need to be prosecuted. If you allow this guy, that cop should be fired. He didn't do anything. Did he call like a response team? Anything? This reminds me of the cop that backed out while he let a whole bunch of kids get shot.
Yeah, this reminds me of the cop that ran the other direction when we had the school shooting down South Florida. Remember that?
Yeah. So that's what I was referring to. I mean, you hire people to do a job, and when the job comes, this is why, having been in combat, I know what it's like to have to charge into some very uncomfortable situation. I've been on point in a patrol before, right? Heading into a place that I knew was not going to be pleasant. The man who does not rise to the occasion should not have any position of authority at all. They should not have the responsibility of caring for other people at all, ever. If you fail to rise to the occasion, you should never be allowed to be responsible for another human being again. And that's why it's not fail safe, right? Not all soldiers rise to the occasion. So, and even when they do, and then they get elected, they don't rise to the occasion in governmental office. Look at Dan Crenshaw. So, there's no answer. There's no answer to this. It's just, I can't believe that there's that many men who witnessed that, who didn't stand up and at least try to put that fire out, try to help that woman in her last moments. I don't know what type of men would watch something like that and not do anything.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable
it's
to me.
mind-boggling.
I can't imagine somebody just standing there filming it and not trying to help this woman as she's burning to death.
And shock doesn't cover it. Shock doesn't cover it. There's not a single person in that subway that couldn't overcome the shock of what they were seeing to try to help or to prevent that guy, to apprehend that guy. Somebody should have choked him to death right then.
There's no shock there, John. If you have enough frame of mind to pull out your phone, open up the camera app, and start filming it, then you're not in shock. All right, you're just fine. You're looking for clicks on social media. That's what you're looking for. So
what it says about our society is just terrifying. The left has turned our country into literally the Stone Age, like Taliban, like it's very Taliban like. The left is the Taliban. That's what they are. They want to have control. They want to be able to stone you in the street. And there's nothing better than having Americans stone each other in the street. And because Americans wouldn't do that, they wouldn't do that at the behest of the left, the Democrats imported people who would stone us to death. And that's exactly what this is. Modern day stoning.
Well, John, some interesting facts came out from the Teamsters president who went on Tucker Carlson's show. He says that Kamala Harris could only answer 3 of their 16 questions before arrogantly saying she was going to win with or without you. This is an unbelievable interview, John. If you get a chance to see the whole thing, definitely watch it. You at home, watch it if you get a chance. But this is just a clip just to show you a little bit of this interview.
16 questions, 2 weeks in advance, the same 16 questions to each candidate. So, RFK answered all 16 questions. Probably most of them didn't answer them how we would like them to answer them, but they answered them. Joe Biden came in and he answered 5 of them. Donald Trump answered all 16. And then when Biden drops out of the race, but prior to Biden dropping out of the race, he's in the race around June or May. One of my vice presidents, a woman named Joan Corey out of my local, she sits on our general executive board, was at an event with Vice President Harris. And, they're going through the line to get the picture, and Joan introduces herself to Vice President Harris, says, "I'm Joan Corey. I'm on the general executive board for the Teamsters." She goes, "Teamsters? You better get on board. You better get on board. Better get on board soon." Says it to my vice president.
To her face?
To her face. So she comes back. We have the meeting the next day.
Damn.
And she tells me this.
I thought I was arrogant. That's really arrogant.
So she tells me this. So I call up Marty Walsh. He wasn't the Secretary of Labor, but, he was pushing hard for us to make the endorsement. I'm like, let me ask you a question, Marty. Excuse my French. Who does this fucking lady think she is? Like, if I want to support from any organization, I am not going to point my finger in someone's face and say, you better get on board or else. But that's the attitude of this whole party. So fast forward, she finally agrees to come after we were putting pressure on her, basically, because I was doing interviews all over the place saying, we haven't got invited to the DNC. They haven't accepted our invitation for her to come to a roundtable. So she comes to the roundtable. Same format, same questions. Rank and file members are asking her questions just like they asked every other candidate. And they were trying to negotiate with us. She only wants to answer 3 questions. We're like, there's 16 questions here. So she answers 3 of them. And on the 4th question, one of her operatives or one of her staff slips a note in front of me. This will be the last question. And it was 20 minutes earlier than the time that it was going to end.
Come on.
100%. And so, you're there trying to get our support. And her declaration on the way out was, I'm going to win with you or without you.
She thought that or said it out loud?
She said it out loud.
That's insane.
So.
That's crazy behavior, actually, if you think about it.
It was insane behavior.
Now, and that's Kamala Harris. That is the bullet we dodged, John. I mean, we dodged a bullet. We knew that, no question. But how big of a bullet, you're finding out more and more every day.
I think that we all knew that we dodged a bullet with Kamala Harris. I mean, if you believe, remember, like, people tried to say that Hillary Clinton was like this grandmother figure. She was sweet and like a grandmother and whatever. We all already, she's been in public eye for like decades. We all knew she was a piranha herself, right? I mean, she's a killer. She's a, she was a who knows? Maybe that's more literal than figurative than we all know. But
Right.
I mean, everybody knows that Hillary was not some warm and fuzzy woman.
No.
Kamala Harris, she seemed just like a dumb sideshow type of vice president, like a Dan Quayle, inconsequential type of person that somebody can make fun of. When she became the presidential nominee, it was like, oh crap, we have to turn this into an actual human being that people can think they can depend on. So they were like, it wasn't just a cackle anymore, right? She had to go deeper than a cackle as a human being. And what does she have? She's got a family that is totally messed up. Her stepkids are totally messed up. They all look like disasters. Her husband looks like a cuck. I mean, it's just, these guys are all, she is, no man would ever vote for Kamala Harris, right? Listen, men know what men will go for, right?
Yeah.
So we knew that she was never going to get the male vote. It doesn't matter, Black, Hispanic, Native, Chinese, Indian, no man was going to vote for Kamala Harris. Every man knew that.
Yeah.
It didn't even most liberal men weren't going to vote for Kamala Harris. So, that wasn't, but how do you make her, let's say, like all the women who were more open-minded towards Kamala Harris. And it's not because Kamala Harris is a woman, by the way, right? There's an unspoken understanding that men have. And that unspoken understanding is why they would never vote for her. And it's not because she's a woman. Men would vote for a woman. But there's a type of woman that men will vote for, right? And it has to be a good woman. Right, essentially that's what it is, right? Like a man, it just has to be a woman that I can feel is loyal. That's going to be the number one thing. Is this woman loyal to the things that are important to me? Then I'm open-minded. If you know that she's not loyal to the things that are important to you, you're never going to vote for her.
Right.
All right. And everybody knows that Kamala Harris was not loyal to the things that any man thought important, his family, protecting his family, providing a man an opportunity to protect and provide for his family. That's politically speaking, in the most basic of terms, that's what it takes. But here she is. Now she's kind of like pulling the face off, and you can see that she's a lizard, and she's telling the Teamsters, I'm going to win no matter what. Essentially, she's the fascist. Everything that they accused Trump of, she was guilty of. Everything that the Democrats accused Trump of, they were guilty. Being fascist is one of those things. And here she is threatening, thinking that the machine is going to bring her the election. But the real machine, even bigger than the machine, is the American people. And it was not enough. So we knew that's who she was. No matter how much they tried to prevent us from knowing who she really was, we knew that's who she was. Yeah. And that's how you get ahead in politics, is by being that Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
But that's not how, hopefully things change. It used to be you had to deceive people into thinking that you were nice. And I think that's one of the reasons that people love Trump, is that Trump doesn't deceive anybody about who he is or isn't. He just is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's comfortable in his own skin, and that's who it is, and that's who you vote for. And I think that's the American people telling you that we're sick of it.
No, absolutely. And he is who he is, you know what I mean? And that's just who Trump is,
Yeah, absolutely. And she's not who she was pretending to be. No. And we all knew that. And we knew who she really was. And like I said, that was never going to be a winner. There was no possibility that she was going to get the male vote. The women would have had to have turned out for her in crazy numbers, but women also know women better than men know women. So were women going to vote for her? No. And did she even get the number of votes that they said she did? No. It doesn't take you weeks to find out listen, for decades and decades and decades, we've known who won the even when Al Gore had to sue Bush to prevent him from certifying the results, we knew who won.
Yeah.
So, come on. We know what's going on. The American people know what's going on now, too. We know what's real and what's not real.
Absolutely. Well, John, if you can believe it, they finally started arresting shoplifters over in California. It's unbelievable. Shoplifters are finding out the hard way that they are getting arrested.
It took a movement by the American people to make that happen. The people of California actually voted in a proposition, a law, like a resolution here in Florida, to make that happen. It wasn't the government of California that did it. It was the people of California who did it.
And wouldn't you know, it was their own governor, Gavin Newsom, who opposed it. He actually opposed it. So if you see Gavin Newsom out there on the campaign trail, because there are rumors that he is going to try and run for president in 26 or 28, right? Is that the next one? When is it? 26, 28? I don't remember. But anyway, when the next presidential election comes up, he's rumored to be one of the candidates in the Democrat nomination. Just remember what he had to say, and this is it right here.
Initiative's done with not one new dollar. It's about mass incarceration. It's about bringing it back to 1980s mindset where it's possession of drugs and you end up in state prison at the cost of $100,000+ per taxpayer. It's funded by big oil and Walmart and conservative right-wing DAs. The impact's going to have on the black and brown community is next level. And the fact that I saw a poll today and so 70% of people want to support it, I was wondering what state I was living in. And I know people are frustrated. I know people are angry. I am too, but this is not the way of solving it. And I think it's important. I hope you all realize this whole thing was under false pretense, was around retail theft. Remember that? I hope you guys do the analysis. Please, I can't do this alone. There has to be some scrutiny and accountability. It was all about retail theft. It's interesting. The retailers are not on board.
It doesn't matter whether the retailers or the grocers are on board. And I have a feeling that most of them were, John, because they were closing stores left and right in California because of the retail theft that was going on there. But
you can operate the business.
Yeah, you can't operate the business. 70% of your voters wanted this. They did vote for it. Now you're seeing these retail shoplifters, and a lot of them are syndicates, John, that go around in a group. They go to different stores, steal, and then they resell, and make money off of it. Now they're going to jail. All right. Newsom, as you saw right there, was totally against it. 70% of my people wanted it. I wondered what state I was living in. Well, maybe you need to leave the state, Governor. Maybe you need to resign. Maybe go to Canada. I don't know, France, someplace else. Go someplace else.
I don't know. Not Canada. Canada's soon going to be the 51st state, right?
That's
so he
true.
can't go
That's
there.
True.
He can't go to Greenland. He's going to have to go an island over and go to Iceland.
He's going to have to go somewhere, John. That's for sure. You know. Anyway, yeah, it's a good thing to see this happening over in California, the people taking back their state. Next up, Newsom out, and I think he will be out. I think the people have had enough of Newsom and his failed policies there. So we'll see.
I mean, the cartel that is Newsom and Nancy Pelosi and all of them, it's coming to an end. Pelosi's going to be passing on at some point in the near future, right? She's in her 80s. She broke her hip. She's not in the greatest of shape. You can't imagine the Pelosi regime lasting forever. And I think they're related, right?
Yeah.
And so they're all kind of, vested in each other's thing. When you have that kind of, that kind of power makes it very difficult. So the funny thing about Newsom here is that Newsom is taking credit for the drop in crime, even though he was against this. And the bottom line is he's telling you that he's against a law that is arresting people, and he's worried about the black and brown community. These are the vast majority of businesses that have been closed due to crime in California are black and brown businesses. So maybe what he's worried about is black and brown people not being dependent on the California state government, because that's the impact that was damaged.
Yeah.
Here is now you're going to see people that they can actually open up a business in a black and brown neighborhood, and maybe their business won't get robbed and
maybe eventually turn a profit.
Yeah,
make some
exactly.
Live the American dream.
Anyways, remember this, because when he's running for re-election or running for election somewhere else, we're going to show that video of Gavin Newsom saying that he doesn't support this, the one thing, but he's going to campaign. So when he campaigns and he says, we drop crime in California by X amount in the future, we're going to pull up this video and be like, oh, but he was against the actual proposition that created the situation for the crime to fall.
Yeah,
so,
this video is going in the vault. It's going in the sacred vault. Yeah. It's going to be kept, and we're going to bring it back. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Save that receipt.
Well, John, we talked about this story on a prior show. There was this University of Oregon employee, he was a teacher, that went before his students and told Trump supporters that they should kill themselves. He was filmed by one of the students. It went viral on X. It went viral everywhere else. Well, now this University of Oregon guy who said this is finding himself without a job after initially being placed on leave. He had a few things to say about that, John. Here he is, and anyway.
I'm done crying. My sadness is over. My anger has set in. I am a very petty person, and I am very proud of that. Love it about myself, actually. And so I say this in the most disrespectful way possible. I don't care if you are my family. I don't care if you're my friend. I don't care if we've been friends our entire lives. You can literally go fuck yourself if you voted for Donald Trump. If you are so sad about your groceries being expensive, get a better fucking paying job. Do better in life. Get a fucking education. Do something. Because you are fucking stupid. And I hope you go jump off of a fucking bridge.
All right. Well, that enough of that guy. Obviously, he peppered the F word in everywhere. This guy has a bad case of TDS, John. He has a very bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. But more than that,
I wonder if you go scroll his social media, what it's going to look like. Can you imagine the craziness that is going to be his social media?
This is the mental health crisis that I talk about all the time. That I'm saying there's a mental health crisis going on in the United States of America, all over the country. He is a victim of it. This guy right here. Obviously, you hear him talk about how he's proud to be petty. That his family, his friends. If you voted for Trump. He doesn't want nothing to do with you anymore. What a ridiculous thing to say, and that only a crazy person would say something like this.
Yeah, a crazy person doesn't cut it. This guy, obviously, he sounds very effeminate.
No doubt.
That's what I'll say about that. And so he sounds like the crazy liberal we're talking about that likes to eat each other. This guy is. Here's the thing. I don't think that you should be fired for the position that he has, right? Yeah. I don't think that you should be fired. If you say all Trump people should go kill themselves on social media, I don't give a damn. I don't care. That means nothing to me. Should you be fired for it? No, you should be allowed to. That'd be like me saying that this guy's effeminate and I'm not surprised that he's a leftist. I'm going to get fired at my job because I say that on my own time. The problem is that he's a college professor.
Yeah.
And when he goes into the classroom and he uses that to teach the kids to be that instead of to teach them the knowledge that they need to make their own decisions, now you have a reason that he's being fired.
Yeah.
These liberal universities are creating the environments in which these people are feeling so empowered to use their political beliefs to teach these kids instead of being nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of being like completely neutral about your teaching position, you're trying to create you're establishing your own agenda aside from teaching kids. And that's why he should have been fired. And if that's the case, if they did the right thing and they fired him for those reasons, then they would be firing all their professors, because can you imagine what the University of Oregon is like in a classroom?
Oh God, I can only imagine.
This guy's not though. I guarantee you he's not the craziest liberal that they have in the classroom preaching liberal aspect to everything. Can you imagine what the woman liberal feminist studies class is like there?
Yeah.
I mean, and the problem is you can't tell that class from an engineering class.
No.
And that's why these guys need to be fired. They don't need to be fired for their opinions. I don't care. He's a joke. If you want to go online and speak like you're a woman and say that somebody should kill themselves, you're showing your lack of character and your lack of maturity. But if you go into a college classroom and then you preach that to the kids there instead of giving, especially at a state school, this is a state school.
Yeah.
And you're not allowing the kids to learn and decide for themselves who they're going to become as adults, that's why you should be fired.
Yeah.
And maybe every university in the country should take that to note, is you better start scrubbing your professors and making sure that they're teaching kids how to make good decisions, become good citizens, and have futures that they can be proud of.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be your priority.
Absolutely.
Not declaring your pride in being petty. I mean, how stupid
or showing how deranged you truly are. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Talking about go get another job. You're stupid because you can't afford to have a better job, and you don't
John, it's
care about
that
the
attitude right there. It's people like that guy right there that are driving away the Lindy Lees and the others from the Democrat Party that are saying, you know, I don't want nothing to do with this anymore. I'm gone.
You're right.
It's guys like
and
that guy.
That petty queen is probably the guy who chased her out exactly by calling her a whore and everything that she said she was called, right? He's the one that chased her out. And you can't disagree. And this guy is proud of his work.
Yeah.
So every, almost normal person is going to be leaving the Democrat Party, obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're dead. They're dead. The Democrat Party is dead. It's defunct. And they have no way of going forward unless they have like sweeping changes. And in cooperation with those sweeping changes, they need to change all the people, that they have as part of their party.
Absolutely. But the Republican Party needs to watch themselves too, because
they're the only reason that they can survive, right? Yep. It's in spite of the Republican Party, in spite of the Republican Party's idiocy that they can survive.
And it's funny, John, because you see what's going on here in Florida with the war I call the war of the elephants, but we know it's not really a war of the elephants. It's the rhinos versus the America First MAGA Republicans. But we're finding out that this is happening elsewhere besides Florida. It's happening in other states too. And
General Flynn was talking about
recently.
it.
Yeah.
So General Flynn was talking about it on X and in North Carolina. And listen, they're going to have to address it. If you think that you're going to purge all the America First and MAGA out of the Republican Party, you're nuts. Yeah. Evan Powers nuts if he thinks he's going to successfully do that.
Even Mitt Romney is saying now that MAGA is the Republican Party. So
imagine that. Yeah. Mitt Romney's smarter than Evan Power today. He's got a better grip of the tea leaves, understanding of the tea leaves than Evan Power, who's right now trying to. And that's his job. We know it's not Evan Power. Evan Power is just a tool. He's a vessel, an empty vessel, which is being filled with the establishment orders, and that's all. But I mean, it's in spite of the mess that is the Republican Party, the Democrats are dead, and it's only going to be because of the Democrats, because of the Republican foolishness of trying to hold on. But what choice do they have? The establishment has to do this in order to try to hold on to power.
Yeah. Well, John, I wanted to end the show with a good story, but I actually am going to end the show with a great story. And, we did talk about New York City and what a cesspool it is right now, all the crap that's happening in the subway systems. Well, one amazing thing happened. For the first time ever, all 27 billboards of Times Square went dark in New York City and then lit up with the story of the birth of Christ. An amazing display. I don't know who paid for this or how this came about, but it is incredible. Watch this.
That's awesome.
Amazing
it's
display.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know how that came about or how that happened or who made that happen, but it Whoever made that happen, kudos to you. Amazing. Beautiful display. Beautiful display.
Yeah, that's really nice to see. It, I think it proves that the whole evaporation of American culture and American holiday traditions and all of that was driven by our governmental leaders, because now that they know that they're gone, they're lame ducks. People are coming back, right? Like, it's rising to the top. The Americanism, American patriotism is rising to the top right now, and people are acting proud. It's your basic instinct to be proud of who you are. And there's no one in the world. There is no one in the world that has more reason to be proud than Americans do. It doesn't matter where you come from in the world. There's no one who has more reason, especially in such a short amount of time, that has more reason to be proud than the United States of America. And we should be proud of who we are. We should be proud of this country. Anybody can come here and achieve anything. It was the government who has been holding us back. We got rid of that government. This is multiple times, right? The American people do the right thing. We did the same thing in the revolution. We came together. We created this country. In the Civil War, we defeated the enemies of the United States and what the future was going to bring, what the future brought. Every time the American people stand up and do the right thing, great things happen. I think that we're in that point of transition right now. I'm super proud of the people of New York, the Times Square, who did this. I'm sure that it was extremely inspirational. The video itself is inspirational, and this is the America that we all want to be a part of. Absolutely. So kudos to them. And thank you for a show. This is going to be, maybe our last show. Maybe we have another, maybe we squeeze in another show for Florida or something before the end of the year, but this is the last Unsanctioned America until the end of the year, right? Yeah. So thank you for watching. We appreciate it. The show has grown so much over the last year. We're very happy to do it. We only do it because we love this country and we love the American people, and somebody needs to be saying the things that others are thinking. And we just kind of took it upon ourselves to do it. And but we love you very much. We love this country. We appreciate you. Merry Christmas. God bless you and your families. On behalf of me, School Board Member John Arguello, former School Board Member John Arguello, my great friend over here, Citizen Tom Lord, Merry Christmas. God bless you. Have a happy new year. And let's look forward to the things to come.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas.
Well, I mean, I was entertained, to be honest.
I think it is rich beyond measure. The fact that a school board member that has tens of millions of dollars of conflict of interest before this board has the courage to come up here and talk about anyone's behavior. If anyone should be ashamed of themselves, sir, it should be you. And I'm in favor of you being able to speak your mind, no matter what. That's how we get. Remember when we were kids, right? And you had a problem with somebody, and then your dad would kick you out to go fight with that kid, and then you shake hands, then you go home, and then you become friends with your disgust when they're trying to, take this word and give it meaning that it doesn't have. Our entire country needs to go through a fasting. You see all of these new age hippies, right? They're constantly fasting. They're doing starvation diets, or they won't eat for this. What is it called? Like some kind of
intermittent fasting. It's not just us, and not just fans of President Trump, MAGA Republicans. We're not the only ones that see it.